Have you ever bombed out while speaking to an audience, or maybe you didn't bomb out, but it was like, okay, these people looked bored? I mean, I actually have experienced that earlier on in my career, of course, but let me tell you, it does not feel good. So, how can you learn some tips and learn some effective tools to make you more of a powerhouse speaker and, excite people when you open up your mouth? Well, joining me in just a moment is a powerhouse speaker herself, Cait Donovan. She speaks about burnout, but this time she is joining us at the NSA Connecticut chapter to talk about how we can up our game. Cait, thanks so much for joining me today.
So excited to be here.
Oh my gosh. So I know that you and I have both sat in an audience and been like, oh my gosh, when is this going to end? So let me start by asking you, what are people doing wrong?
It falls down to at the very underneath of all of the issues with whether a speech is good or not, it comes down to two things: connection and disconnection.
Okay, tell me more. I'm interested. So, what makes that connection? What helps bring that connection together? What helps captivate the audience?
The first thing that brings the connection together is having, as the speaker, some sort of connective emotion to the audience that you're working with. When we think about connection emotions, we're immediately going to like love and empathy. And it doesn't have to be that strong, but appreciation or interest or some level of investment, you actually have to have a level of appreciation for your audience before you step on that stage to be able to connect with them.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense because so that means that you don't necessarily have to go for the wow moment right up at the top, right? You don't have to be over the top, but you have to be authentic, obviously. And you have to be able to connect. So, what are some ways that people can connect? Like, give me an example. For example, like storytelling. I mean, I feel like storytelling brings people in automatically.
Storytelling brings people in automatically, and also avoiding the disengagement, the disconnection factors. Like, so one of the things, there was a conference not too long ago where someone got on stage and gave an entire keynote that they read off of the slides and off of papers.
Yeah.
Which is and I know that some people are nervous, some people are not. That's fine. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have any props or tools to help yourself feel supported, but because there was no flow and because the connection to the material was stronger than the connection to the audience, we lost everybody. The whole room was just looking around and rolling their eyes. So you have to know and love your material, but you also have to create space to know and love, or whatever the connection emotion is that you're choosing, your audience, which means that being able to engage your audience means understanding them before you get on the stage.
Oh,
You can't wait until you're in front of people to be like, okay, how do I connect with them? If you don't know who these people are, you're not going to get where you want to go.
absolutely. I think what in the speakers world we call that death by PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
Which, of course, you and I have seen so many times with people that are sort of learning, right? A lot of corporations, a lot of corporate people, they're doing a presentation and they're relying so heavily on those bullet points to carry them through. But I always say, like, distill it down to the message and the connection that you want to feel. But let me ask you, because you attend lots of speeches, when are you most captivated? Or give me an example or a moment when you were, oh, stopped in your tracks.
The connection emotion that gets me the most as an audience member is awe.
Mm. Awe. Okay.
Awe. That's the one that gets me the most, when somebody gets up there and understands me so well without having ever met me, that it puts me into a state of awe and wonder. I cannot keep myself away from speeches like that.
So what is it though? Is the person being vulnerable
Yes.
or okay.
It's a vulnerability and a willingness to say the thing. There's so
Yes.
much. I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine for my podcast. Her name is Nahal Youssefian, and she was chief HR for Netflix at some point. And we were talking about this idea of not saying the thing. We're so, especially those of us that speak in the corporate world, there's so much jargon, there's so many things we have to be careful of that sometimes we package our stuff too stiffly and we become just another corporate bot instead of somebody coming in from the outside who's there to inject some power.
I call that playing it safe. Which, why play it safe? If you're going to go through the trouble of getting up there in front of all of those people, your colleagues, your peers, a new audience, why play it safe? Right?
Fear. And it's the same thing about the last one, like people using their cards and relying on things. Public speaking is above death in people's number, like is the number one fear over death.
Mm.
So it
Wow.
is no surprise that people that are put into this position that are not like absolutely obsessed with it have a difficult time. So I
Mm,
don't want to sort of shame anybody or make anyone feel bad if they need these tools, if they are so supremely nervous that they can't connect with people, if they that's totally normal. But then your job is your emotional life,
mhm,
right? Then your job becomes how do I manage my emotions? And that's not something we talk about as speakers.
mm. Well, I think it's so difficult for someone that's maybe hired as a position that's not a public speaker, but you are really expected to speak publicly as you go up the ladder in any
Of course.
position. So even though some people say they're soft skills, I disagree with that completely. I think they are essential skills.
Yeah.
And so for people, who is this meeting for? Who do you think would benefit from this presentation that you're going to give on February 13th in New Haven for NSA Connecticut?
Anybody who has to speak in front of anybody anytime.
Well, all right, that's awesome. Yeah, no, it's true because every time I attend a speech, I always have a takeaway, a nice little gem that I can say, okay, you know what? Maybe most of the content didn't resonate with me, but I'm going to put that one gem in my toolkit and I'm going to take off. And I know you're going to be filled. You're going to give us like a case of diamonds with yours. Before we go, I wanted to ask you, where is humor? Should you infuse humor? Should you try to be like a little lighthearted or, you know, um, how should you engage that way? Or is it sort of inappropriate?
It depends on if you're funny or not.
Ah,
Right? If you have a natural I have a natural silliness to me,
mhm,
and I talk about a very serious topic that I believe needs to be broken up with humor in order for people to stay open and stay engaged with it. So humor is critical for me on stage, but humor is also natural to me. So if humor is not natural to you, this is another thing that you work on in the background. You don't just try and inject it without actually working with someone. There are humorists all over the NSA who can support you, helping to add humor that fits you into your speech so that it is natural and really works. But if you are trying too hard to use someone else's type of humor, it's going to fall
mm,
flat.
fall flat. Well, and also like don't live in a vacuum. Try it out on a few people because
Yeah,
you might
sure.
think you're hysterical. Sorry.
I am, though.
Well, we hope we are. Kate, thank you so much for joining us
Of
and for
course.
teaching us all how we can create awe when we are being listened to. And if you want to hear Cait Donovan live, you can join us at the NSA February 13th. Sign up at NSA.